The U.S. State Department is set to send a report to Congress today to give their conclusions on whether or not Israel is violating international law in regard to its war on Hamas. We're going to talk about that with Kéthévane Gorjestani, who joins me on the set. Kéthévane, what more do we know about that?
Well, we are expecting this report today, although the State Department yesterday seemed to be indicating that they were doing their best to get it today, but that it might be delayed by a couple of days. So we'll see how that turns out. But really, this report is based on a National Security Memorandum 20 that was released by the president in February. And that memorandum ordered the State Department, specifically the Secretary of State, to obtain credible and reliable written assurances from foreign governments, in this case from Israel, then make an assessment about those written assurances, and then report that assessment to the U.S. Congress on two main elements. One is whether, in this case, Israel used U.S. weapons in accordance to international and U.S. law. And the other aspect of this is whether the Israeli army and the Israeli government, as we heard in the report, arbitrarily denied, restricted, or otherwise impeded directly or indirectly the delivery of U.S. aid to the civilians in Gaza. So two very big things for the State Department to give its conclusions on. There have been multiple independent reports from military experts, from human rights experts who say that on those two things, they should find Israel guilty, if you will, because the strikes that have been happening in Gaza and the wide scale of casualties and the targets, hospitals, schools, aid worker, journalists, all of this was beyond the laws of proportionality. Israel says that they had to do that because Hamas was using these buildings as shields. The other aspect of the restriction of humanitarian aid, Israel has always blamed Hamas for being responsible for that aid not getting to the civilians, whereas NGOs have been saying that the Israelis are also partly to blame. Unclear yet what the U.S. Will decide, but they have already started, in a way, halting the sending of weapons to the Israelis. We saw in that report those thousands of bombs that they've paused last week, and they're reviewing, possibly halting also some other precision weapons.
So what sort of consequences might there be within this report once we actually get it?
Well, the memorandum itself doesn't impose on the U.S. government to stop sending weapons to Israel, even if they find that Israel violated those laws. But there are, if they do, there are other laws in existence that could force the U.S. to at least halt sending some of the weapons. One of them is the Leahy Law from back in the 1990s, which prevents the U.S. from sending military aid to specific military units in foreign countries in case of human rights abuses. The other part is the political pressure. Even if they don't have to, they might be pressured to do so, especially from within the Democratic Party that has already, a part of the Democratic Party, already been calling for Joe Biden and his administration to at least condition sending those weapons, if not halt completely sending those weapons. There could be also a reaction, a backlash from the Republicans if they do that, because the Republicans want to continue helping Israel. If they consider that there is no violation by Israel, that could trigger an even bigger backlash within the left, within the Democratic Party. I'll just end on one quote that we're going to show of Senator Chris Van Hollen, who's a Democrat. He's been a critic of Israel, and he says, if the finding of fact and law is that at no point since the beginning of the war in Gaza has there been a violation of international humanitarian law with respect to the delivery of humanitarian assistance, you have set a terribly low bar for the world. If the U.S. decides that Israel hasn't violated any laws, also think about the context, those student protests in colleges, and the left, the young voters, already criticizing Joe Biden for his position on Israel, and that could get even bigger 6 months away from the election.
All right, thanks for that, Kéthévane Gorjestani.